As journalists posed their questions, Zelensky's tone shifted from reflective to forceful. He spoke of intelligence reports warning of renewed Russian missile stockpiling and of the need to preempt attacks rather than merely react to them. He also emphasized that Ukraine's upcoming talks in Washington were not just about arms or funding, but about strategy, deterrence, and the long-term future of Eastern Europe. The camera cut to a wide shot, both leaders seated before a wall of microphones listening carefully to questions translated from English to Ukrainian and back. The choreography of diplomacy unfolded with military precision. Zelensky's responses carried hints of frustration at delays in Western decision-making, but also gratitude for ongoing support. "We must prepare," he repeated, "for what Russia has not yet done." That phrase, equal parts caution and defiance, encapsulated Ukraine's wartime psychology: constant anticipation, constant rebuilding, constant vigilance. Kallas leaned in as he spoke, her expression grave but supportive. For her, this trip was about reaffirming the EU's political spine, reminding the world that Europe's security begins not in Paris or Berlin, but on the front lines of Kyiv and Kherson. Then, in a brief moment of symbolism, both leaders rose to shake hands. The handshake, firm, direct, unhurried, was captured from multiple angles. In a conflict where so many alliances are tested daily, even a handshake carries strategic weight. The press conference ended with their exit, a slow walk out of the chamber surrounded by aides and security, leaving behind a flurry of shouted questions and flashing bulbs. But the real meaning of the event lay beyond the room. Zelensky's announcement of his trip to Washington hinted at renewed US involvement, and specifically, a direct line to President Trump, whose second term has reshaped global diplomacy. For Ukraine, this upcoming meeting could define the next phase of the war, not through battlefield victories, but through sustained Western alignment. As one of Zelensky's advisors later told reporters, air defense is no longer just about protecting cities, it's about protecting strategy. That insight reflected how integrated the war has become with political messaging and transatlantic trust. Back in Brussels, diplomats quickly echoed Kallas's words, stressing that accountability would remain central to Europe's post-war planning. Behind the scenes, EU officials were discussing expanded sanctions mechanisms and longer-term funding frameworks for Ukrainian reconstruction. The Kyiv meeting, therefore, was not just about immediate support. It was about ensuring continuity. In war, continuity is victory. Zelensky's choice to speak in English during parts of the conference was deliberate, aimed directly at Western audiences. It was his way of bypassing translation delays, of reaching global viewers instantly through live streams and social media.
І на цій посаді також. Ми за це дуже вдячні. Ми говорили, що це сильний тиск на Росію, тому одразу всі починаємо.
European Union is standing beside you and supporting.
Under the pale autumn light of Kyiv, a sense of urgency filled the presidential conference hall. Rows of cameras blinked red, and the quiet murmur of journalists settled into silence as Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky and European Union Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas took their seats side by side. This was more than another diplomatic meeting. It was a signal to Moscow, to Washington, and to Europe that Kyiv's fight for survival still defines the continent's political heart. The close-ups told their own story. 2 glasses of water on a polished wooden table, untouched, their reflections trembling under camera lights. The atmosphere was solemn, precise, the kind of setting where every word would be measured and every gesture examined. As the 2 leaders entered the room, reporters rose to capture the moment. Zelensky, in his familiar olive green jacket, walked briskly alongside Kallas, who carried the calm determination of Europe's top diplomat. Behind them trailed their aides, notepads, binders, translation devices, the modern tools of a war fought as much through alliances as on battlefields. The president began first. His voice was steady, but layered with exhaustion and resolve. "Yes," he said, "I will travel to Washington this week to meet with President Donald Trump. The main topics will be air defense and our possibilities to put pressure on Russia in the long term." It was a statement that revealed both need and strategy. Air defense, the single phrase that has defined Ukraine's survival since the first missiles darkened its skies, remains Kyiv's most urgent demand. The second, pressure on Russia, pointed to a broader vision, maintaining Western unity and ensuring that Moscow cannot simply wait out the world's fatigue. Zelensky went on to explain that he would also meet with American defense contractors and private sector companies, underscoring Ukraine's growing dependence on Western technology and rapid innovation. We have needs, he admitted, immediate needs, because of the different types of attacks, even those that Russia has not yet carried out. Behind him on the backdrop, the Ukrainian and EU flags stood together, blue and yellow, merging with the circle of European stars. It was a visual reminder of a partnership born from crisis and sustained through resilience. Then came Kaja Kallas, her tone resolute, her words deliberately clear. It is clear that we all want this war to end, she began. Ukraine wants this war to end, Europeans want this war to end, and the United States wants this war to end. The only one who doesn't want this war to end is Russia. Her statement drew a measured nod from Zelensky. The room remained silent as she continued. So our call to all allies is to help Ukraine militarily so that it can defend itself and push back Russian aggression. It was a direct appeal, not just to governments, but to public opinion across Europe, where questions about military fatigue and economic strain are growing louder. For Kallas, representing the European Union, this was also a test of Europe's long-term endurance in a war entering its fourth year. The sound of camera shutters punctuated her final words. There can be no justice, she added firmly, without accountability. That single phrase, no justice without accountability, rippled across the hall. It captured the essence of Europe's stance. The war cannot simply end with silence or compromise. It must end with recognition of responsibility.
It is clear that we all want this war to end. I mean, Ukraine wants this war to end. Europeans want this war to end. Also, America wants this war to end. So the only one who doesn't want this war to end is Russia. So our call to all allies is to help Ukraine militarily so that they can defend itself and push back Russian aggression.
Kallas's decision to repeat her message twice, once formally, once conversationally, was equally intentional. It reinforced Europe's clarity. Unity is not just moral support, it's material, logistical, and deeply political. By the time the two leaders departed, the symbolic choreography was complete, the glasses of water still untouched, the flags still fluttering. Outside, the chill of Kyiv's autumn reminded everyone of the approaching winter, a season that has tested Ukraine's energy grid and national morale every year since the invasion began. And yet, as the footage faded to black, one thing remained unmistakable. Both Zelensky and Kallas were projecting endurance, not optimism, endurance. As Zelensky boards his flight to Washington in the coming days, the stakes could not be higher. The conversations in the Oval Office and the Pentagon will determine not only the strength of Ukraine's defences, but also the credibility of Western promises. For Kyiv, it is a race against time. For Brussels, a test of consistency. For Moscow, a reminder that the pressure will not relent. And for the watching world, this brief press conference, just a few minutes of footage, a few sentences of sound, encapsulated the geopolitical tension of 2025, the fragile balance between hope and exhaustion, between diplomacy and deterrence. In the words of Kaja Kallas, the only one who doesn't want this war to end is Russia. And in Zelensky's, we must prepare for what Russia has not yet done. Two voices, one message, that Ukraine's defence remains Europe's defence, and that peace, when it comes, must be built not on fatigue, but on resilience.
Yes, and I will have meeting with some companies because there are some needs, what we need now, because of different format of attacks, even not those attacks which Russia already did. Yes, but we have to prepare in any case. So it will be helpful. And so air defense, the main topics are air defense and our possibilities with long range to pressure on Russia.